Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and children, and welcome to episode 12 of the V8ESC Backfire podcast. My name's Pete Bingham. I'm in place of Clyde, so you've got the better commentator tonight. Clyde can't be with us, unfortunately, tonight. He went to Thailand in the week and met a girl, in inverted commas, ended up with something in his mouth, and it's affected his voice. I think you call that VD, I'm not sure. Also in the booth with me is Tony Pottymouth Kloosterman.
I've changed. Honest, I have.
We don't believe you yet, so that'll be proven or disproven as we go through the night. But say hello to everybody anyway.
Hello, everyone.
And Johnny, too posh for the Enduro League. Brandon.
Good evening.
And Sam boozing as ever with all the controls and trying to keep everything as mature as possible. So, one prize for tonight. I don't know what the prize is. Not worked that out yet. But if anybody else can find anything more amusing than what I've said for why Clyde Whiting's not here, then post it on the chat, and we'll get around to it at some point and make it public. I'm sure it'll stream straight past the screen if Sam's got his gear working properly. We've got quite a lot to cover tonight. It's been quite a while since we had the last podcast. Sorry, I shouldn't be reading what Clyde's writing. I really shouldn't. We've got one of the Enduro races to cover, which we'll cover first. And then we've got a number of normal Racetech league races to cover as well, with varying amounts of controversy and topics to go through. So, if we look at the Endurance League, the last one that we haven't covered was Spa. Came with its own set of new and interesting challenges for the racers on the endurance. What do you guys got in terms of standouts from Spa? Anything?
I think Richard Warmingham had an excellent race at Spa. He, pretty much dominated the race, I would say. 17 seconds ahead of Greg Carr. Greg had a great race, as did Steve LaValle, and then everybody else was lagging behind quite a bit. You all know how much I love this track, so yeah.
And behind Greg, Steve LaValle, and Wayne Sanderson and yourself rounded out the top five there. Any individual challenges in that?
Anytime I go to Spa, it's a challenge, so I'm not the one to ask. And unfortunately, Johnny wasn't there.
No. Are you planning on joining the Enduro, Johnny, or you got better things to do? Are you polishing the silverware from last season?
No, I might do one or two of them. I missed the first race because I was in Vegas, and then the second one I had something else going on. I was really busy at work, so I didn't manage to get on for that or do any practice for that. Just been giving them a miss. I might do the odd one, but we'll see. Lots of things happening on iRacing, new cars and various other cars we're in. So there's always plenty to do.
Yeah,
so we just haven't got around to it at the moment.
Yeah, we'll be talking about the new cars and tyre models and damage models and things like that later in the podcast. I'd like to point out, just because he's on the chat at the minute, Lane O'Connor, your Enduro score so far needs a bit of work, mate. -3 is your total for the season so far. Not doing fantastically, it has to be said. So Rich Warmingham is leading the Endurance League entirely at the moment. Surprise to anyone?
No, I think Richard's performance over the last year or so has been outstanding. So not a surprise.
Yeah, Rich's quality. And Steve's doing really well as well.
Yeah, I've got him down as SLV, so that's how he'll be known from now on.
I have to say, looking at the results, obviously I wasn't in the race. Looking at the results, though, you've got Wayne Sanderson in fourth. That's a bit of a standout for me because he's one of the new guys.
He is one of the new guys, and new races
Stefan
is
Schlacker in eighth. That is pretty impressive.
yeah, and he's only done one race. He turned out a good result at the end of that one. There was plenty of incidents in that race as well, though. Obviously, it's an endurance race. You expect to see more. And Spa's one of those places where you just... It's like an incident magnet, isn't it? You just can't avoid them.
Off-track
Especially...
incidents, yeah. There's the problem with Spa is it's very easy to go quick if you take the 1Xs, but with the new 15X drive-through penalty, I think that sort of curtails that, and then it makes it a proper track, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got new drivers on there, which we've already spoken about a little bit. In terms of what we're looking for next time out, so Sebring, lots of people like Sebring. It's one of Clyde's favourite tracks, I think. Any
I detect some
likes
sarcasm there.
No, he does actually like it. I don't think it likes him, but that's beyond the point. So, and any comments about Sebring, especially on the endurance format?
It's a concrete track. It's very rough, and we haven't really been at a track that's like that so far with the new car. So it'll be interesting to see how the suspension handles.
Yeah, and again, damage model. We have noticed damage from going over bumps, haven't we? In certain races.
Yeah, we did, and I don't know if you want to talk about it now, but prior to the Nürburgring, I've been seeing damage on the cars quite regularly, regardless of what track and regardless of what setup configuration. And I contacted one of the engineers I know at iRacing, and they did some work on the car. They investigated a bit, and in the build that came out last week, we've got a strengthened front splitter, and we have a damage box that it's not as easy to get a meatball on anymore. So hopefully people will enjoy that.
Yeah, I mean, my experience of my 3 crashes, that's right, people. There's not many people that can get up there with me with the crash count. At Nürburgring, I literally brushed the fence at Nürburgring and I got meatballed. There was nothing wrong with the car. It handled fine. It had the same pace. It had a couple of scratches down the paintwork, and it meatballed me, which was
You say
ridiculous.
brush the fence. Was it at 30 mile an hour or was it
Well,
130 mile an hour?
Well, you know what my
Right,
camera
okay.
footage is usually like, Johnny. They capture every crash, but it was the only one they did capture actually. So it was a rub. It was nothing more than that. I mean, I'm used to monging the car on pit walls and things like that. So no, that one was just a little brush. So something needed to happen to that damage model for
I
sure.
have to
So
say, we only noticed it at Nürburgring, just from driving the circuit, like coming for the pit stop, and there was 20 seconds optional repairs.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
not happened anywhere else. We haven't noticed it anywhere else. So I assumed it was wheel damage from hitting the curbs or something.
right, okay.
But yeah, if it's splitter damage, Tony would know more on that than me, I think.
Yeah, it was happening in all the official races as well. So, anyways, it's gone now, and hopefully it's better for everyone.
Yeah. Do we expect the contribution to the Endurance League to increase at all? I mean, well, last year when we did the sprint races, it was always a smaller grid than when we did the standard league. Is that for any particular reason, do you think?
I don't know. I don't know that we're chatting it up enough in Discord, perhaps, to make sure that people are aware of which weekends are the endurance races. So maybe we need to do that a little bit. But I think we had 16 guys start, which I guess is okay, but we could do better.
Yeah, I think that's right. I like endurance racing. The only reason I'm not doing it at the moment is because I'm obviously commentating on it. Endurance races give me the opportunity to rejoin the track, you see, or at least be in the pits long enough to repair the car. as Clyde quite obviously has just pointed out on the chat. Speaking about the chat, if you've got any questions that you'd like Johnny or Tony or even me for whatever reason you'd want that, get your comments and questions on the chat, and we'll try and make a copy of them and remember to mention them at the end or as we go through.
Just the last thing on that endurance championship, getting more numbers. I think you might get more numbers going forward, because I think the first one was the same weekend as the Daytona 24-hour on iRacing.
Yeah, it was.
A lot of people missed that, and then the next one, Spa. No, it's not a lot of people's favourite track. And then you had new cars coming out and all sorts at the same time.
Hopefully.
So maybe it might be a bit more populated going forwards. Yeah.
Yeah,
I might do Sebring. I like Sebring.
Yeah, lots of people like Sebring. Why do you think that is?
It's just an interesting track, isn't it? It's just not a boring track, I suppose. And you don't do too much racing on there. It's one of the good tracks on iRacing that it doesn't seem to be used that often.
True.
Okay,
so let's move on to controversial race number 1, which is the Racetech Suzuka rounds. At Suzuka, it was a sprint followed by a feature race. I was gonna say, Tony, do you want to kick us off on this one? But I think you did that on the exit of 130R, which we'll talk about later as well. So for race 1, the sprint race, George brought that one home. Correct me if I'm getting any of these wrong, by the way. Johnny, you were in second. Foggy was in third. Chris Jackson was in fourth, and Kane from Racecraft was in fifth. Tony, you were down in 12th on that sprint one.
Yeah, I had a little incident with another driver and got off track, and had to fight back, but not a great result.
But in contrast, Johnny?
I had a great race, got taken out by my teammate. Hey.
I'd like to say I've never done that. Just wait for Clyde's comments on the screen and you can carry on.
It was had a great battle with Foggy. We were cruising at the front and had a little chat in Discord, said let's race. I think I looked after my tyres a little bit better than he did, and he made the one mistake, got through, and then he just made a little. He wasn't even going for an overtake. He just misjudged the distance between the two cars, and we touched, and that was it. So then he backed off, waiting for me as well, and George got through for the win.
Yeah. George is probably the best of the Tech Sense racers, I think, at the moment. He's
I actually told Foggy. Oh, George is rapid. George I told Foggy not to wait at the time. I was like, "Don't wait for me. What are you doing? Go, go, go!" And he wouldn't have it. So he was like, "No," and backed off. And George was there to pick up the pieces. Doesn't happen very often. I think that's the first time it's happened, to be fair.
Yeah.
George wasn't going to turn down that invitation either. So.
No, exactly. Wouldn't expect him to. I'd have done the same if it was reversed. So fair, and he had to be there to pick up those pieces. So. Fair play to him.
Yeah, no, that's good. In race 2, which was the feature race, double the length, George again took the checkered flag for that one. Marco Nemela in second. He's on the chat at the minute, so hello, Marco. Bit of a shout out to you. Tony, you got third in that one, and followed by your teammate Chris Jackson.
Yeah, I'll say it again. I apologize to Johnny. I made a really boneheaded move there after we had contact, and basically I lost my shit, and not very proud of it. So we move on, but not a good feeling at the end of that race.
And you took a pit lane start at Nürburgring, kind of without any arguments, really. You'd already voted yourself in for it, yeah?
Yeah, I volunteered right away, right after the race.
So obviously temper's flare. It's the heat of racing, isn't it, when you're up at the front, and I'm rarely at the front of races, let's face it. So for you guys,
other than this past weekend,
Well, yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that a lot because I'm going to be dining out on that one for a while. So, from your perspective, when stuff like that happens, how difficult is it to suppress those urges to bite? I know even you, Johnny, have lost your cool at times with other people. Tell me
Not
how
quite to the
tell me how
same
you manage
extent,
that.
but yeah.
No, true. But tell me how you manage that.
Is that to me?
To either of you. Let's start with you, Johnny.
I'm generally. It's just frustration for me when things happen, especially with top guys, because I don't think it should happen with top guys. It's a different type of frustration. Without being disrespectful to people, but in the bottom half of the grid, you kind of expect things and you race them a different way and be a bit more cautious with them, because in my mind there's more focus on the driving of the car and less awareness of what's going around, because they require more concentration to do what they're doing. The good guys, the difference being really is that you're driving the car and you've got a bit more brain power left to be aware of other things and make decisions. And when silly accidents happen, in my mind, then it gets particularly frustrating with the top guys, because I can't understand why it happens.
Okay, we'll talk more about
Yeah.
that when we get to Barber, because that's been hot on discussion on Discord. Tony, how do you diffuse your rage? Obviously, you slipped up in that one, but how do you normally do
I just don't touch the button.
it?
And and that's normally what I do. Don't touch the button. But in that particular instance, Johnny and I saw the
You definitely hit the
incident.
button.
I did. Johnny and I saw that incident differently. I didn't think that he would make a move there, and we had contact, net code, whatever it was. It doesn't matter at this point in time. It's really old news, but I just didn't think it had to happen there. Johnny was quicker than me, and there were other places on the track that were much safer. So, anyways, it's done in my mind, and we need to move on. And hopefully, based on conversations this weekend on the Barber race, other people can do the same.
Yeah, I was just going to say actually. Obviously, you guys are in here because you are the premium racers. If we're going to have conversations about how you win races and how you take corners, it's going to be you guys that we ask. What we don't often have is the alternative viewpoint, which is from the racing retards like me, how we perceive what's going on around us. Because from my perspective, it's very very different. And I think some of the other people that I talk to also have a very different opinion. It's
Of a different opinion of what? Sorry.
how to interpret what's going on around us. Half the time we're trying to stay on the racing line, but then you will get someone who is screaming at you, "Get off the racing line because you're in my way."
My
And it's
view
like,
is if
what?
you're in that bottom half of the grid and you're doing that, you're so focused on getting around the track, you shouldn't have to interpret what's going on around you until it is literally next to you. You shouldn't be watching your mirrors and looking out for people. That's not your responsibility if you're the guy in front. If you're being lapped, then it's a different situation.
Yeah, I
If
agree
it's
with
just
that.
for
Yeah,
position,
absolutely.
that it's not your, as the car in front, it's not your responsibility to look at what the car behind is doing, unless you're trying to defend. But you shouldn't be looking and jumping out of people's way. 1000%.
But
Absolutely. And oh, sorry, go on, Tony.
I said, but people need to be aware of closing rate, and I think this is the issue in the reverse grids that I see, anyways, is that you know if you have your F3 box up, and you should be paying attention to it, and someone's catching you 2 or 3 seconds a lap, then the thing that frustrates me more than anything else is you're catching somebody 2 or 3 seconds a lap, and then they want to brake you into a braking zone. Why? Just why? I don't get it.
I agree that they shouldn't be fighting too hard, but at the same time, that we're not. If we're catching these people by 2-3 seconds a lap, we're not entitled for them to see us coming and get out of our way and let us through.
Not
The
suggesting
sensible
that.
thing to do would be for them to get out of the way, because they'd lose less time fighting us, and then they could sit in behind and follow us, and in the overall race pace, they'd be quicker.
I
So that
agree
is
with
the
that.
sensible thing to
Yeah,
do.
I agree.
But there's no requirement for them to go, oh shit, Johnny's coming, I better get out of his way, because we're here to race. But I agree with you. If I go up the inside at the hairpin and it's a sensible move and I'm alongside, for them to then fight it around the outside is silly. But again, they're entitled to do so as long as they leave room for you on the inside or me on the inside, and then I leave room for them on the outside. So I don't really see a problem with that. I think that's more that's their decision as opposed to a requirement. I don't think someone should be watching what's going on behind them, and if somebody's catching them, if they don't know you're coming, they'll see you when you get there. And yeah, I don't. As the car in front, it's not your responsibility to look out for the car behind in any situation unless you're being lapped, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd agree with all of that. One thing that gets me is when I'm passing the pit lane and there are and people are in the pits. My relative screen shows me all the cars that are in pit lane. What it doesn't show me is that one of you two is steaming up behind me, and sometimes you scare the pants off me when I'm about to turn in and there's a car on the inside of me, because my relative screen was full of people in the pits beforehand, and
Do you
especially if
use the virtual mirror or the mirrors
sorry.
in the car? Do you
I've got
use like
every
virtual
mirror
mirror?
on. I've got
Yeah.
more mirrors than one of those showrooms where you get all your furniture from.
Maybe you should turn the light on.
Definitely. But understanding what the closing rate is of the car behind, you can watch it tick down, yeah. And whilst you're busy trying to weave your way and not crash round the track, or doing your own race with somebody else if you're in close proximity, it becomes a secondary thing, and then it's a shock when one of you guys is bearing down on you. But it'd be good if we could have that from someone other than me, because I'm the MC for tonight, aren't I? Maybe in a future podcast, because we have got a lot of things to cover tonight. So we are going to move on. Oh, one other thing, Suzuka. Where the hell was all the grip?
I thought there was plenty of grip.
Typical Japanese track, whether it's Suzuka or Okayama or Suzuka or whatever the name of that track is, Motegi, they all seem to have a lack of grip for some reason.
It's bizarre. I was going around corners and one lap, and I had loads of grip, and then I'd go around the same corner the next lap at the same speed, and no grip. It was just, well, let's go random then, shall we? I just thought one of you guys might understand, but I've heard other people say that Japanese tracks don't have any grip.
It seems to be that way, but
Yeah.
the new tire model in general is still not quite there.
Yeah. Well, let's have a little talk about the tire model. So, here's my take on it. You've got grip for about half a lap, unless you're at Nürburgring, which is like 3 corners. Then you've got nothing for, well, up to about 3 or 4 laps, and then you've got a lot of grip for a couple of laps, and then it tails off, and then it stays absolutely the same, in my opinion, right to the end of every one of my races.
Yeah, you pretty much nailed it there, Pete.
You see any difference to that, Johnny?
No, that's about the same. Yeah, I don't think we get huge amounts of grip initially, but maybe we're not trying to use that huge amount of grip initially.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get your pace, and then you get a bit of drop off, and then it comes back a bit and stays steady for the rest of the race. I think that is just the way the tyres are working, and like Tony says, I don't think it's quite right, but it's not too bad. It's the same for everybody.
Okay.
It's okay as long as people aren't burning their tires up. I mentioned this in Discord the other day that I think that the reason some people are having a lot of difficulty with the car is that they're just spinning up the rears on every corner, and you really need to modulate the throttle input to stop that spin up from happening.
I think the other thing that happens a lot of people fall foul of as well is going really hard on the brakes early on. All like the throwing it up the inside dive moves with the high grip in the early laps. Even if you don't lock up, the stress you put in the fronts under,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're putting extra lock on because you're deep into the corner. You're putting more steering lock on, and you're scrubbing those tires. And it's the same as locking the tires up. You need to be careful. You end up killing the fronts and the rears by overdriving it. It feels like you got loads of grip, but you're using more. If you're being aggressive, not only as Tony says on the throttle with the rears, if you're being aggressive on the steering wheel and the steering inputs, that has as much of an effect as if you're being aggressive on the brakes or on the rear tires.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, and Tony, you've said this to me before about turning angle, and how much less you use. How do you rotate the car then?
Let's use Barber as an example. The last portion of the track where you have that little uphill, downhill, and long right. I was watching a number of replays over the last 24 hours, and people are trying to power through that right-hander. And the reality is if you get off the power and have it halfways coast or part throttle through that particular area, the car just grips up so much quicker.
So you're not having as much lateral stress on the tire.
And I think
Johnny's
that I was pointing that out to you in a practice session earlier last week. Must be where that second place came from, all that tutelage.
Funny you should say that. So, to the other point before about staying on the driving line and ignoring the guy behind you, even if he's approaching at speed, there was no way Nicole was getting that lap away from me. I was going to at least lead one lap this season, and that was it. So I can die happy now. But where I was catching him was on that turn, funnily enough, using the tactic that you gave me, which was stay within that black line. You can even see it on the replays, the different line that Nicole was taking to what I was, and it was absolutely faster. So thanks for that.
I don't want to take anything away from you, but Nicole did about 10 minutes practice for this race and had a different setup direction because he wasn't around, didn't want to take our setup, stuck with his own one. And it wasn't much good, as with ours, to be fair, compared to Tony's and Chris's and Greg's, and the NQR one looked awesome. But Nicole was properly struggling this week.
Well, that's just stolen all the steam from my
But you
sails.
still did well. You still had to be there.
Just pop the balloon, yeah.
Yeah, you heard it here first, folks. I was crap, and Nicole was only marginally better. So, on that note, we're going to move on. So, we're going to move to Nürburgring. So, this is round 5. Nicole won it by a whopping 45 seconds. Guessing he had a good setup for that one and wasn't struggling. Johnny, you were second. Rich Warmingham was third. Lewis Bibby, don't often see his name at all, to be honest. He was in there and doing really well. Victor Tanaka, then George McClay, then Jamie McKnight, and then Silent Bob, Sam Bouzon. Tony, you ended up 17th. Is that right?
Yeah.
Am I reading that right? Yeah.
Yeah, you're reading that right. I had about 8 minutes of repairs with a lap to go. I'm going to give full credit to Nickel here. He made that race go a lap longer than I thought it was going to, and I used up my fast repair on my last pit stop, and then brushed the guardrail. One of those 30-mile-an-hour things, and got a meatball, and that was the end of the race. And a lot of people had to stop and get fuel. None of the XVR guys, because they were all in on the secret. But yeah,
we actually
good on them.
worked it out halfway through the race, and
fabulous. You guys did a great job.
Couldn't keep up with Nickel. We knew that before the race even started. So I followed him for a bit, and then we basically just set him loose and sort of realised he had a chance of getting it. And he was a superstar with that, because he had to do some serious lap times there, where he had the race in the bag, but he went for it. And we thought we'd catch out a lot more people, to be fair. We thought we'd help Steve Lavalley and maybe anyone else that was in on it and had the extra time. We thought it would catch out a few people, the extra lap. But surprisingly, it didn't catch as many as we thought.
So
That
you
was
think
a brilliant drive from him, anyways.
it was, yeah. You think a track like that would be a fairly simple thing to have a tactic for, wouldn't you? It's an 8.5-minute lap or
To give you an
whatever we were
idea, I
doing.
think he made the extra lap by a second.
Right.
So that shows you how on it he was. It was he was ridiculously fast around there. So
Yeah, I mean, I was nowhere near it, obviously, but everybody else seemed to be. Well, it's hard to get off the lead lap, right? So my achievement was monumental. Um, it's a nearly 9-minute lap. You wouldn't think that tactics would do that, but pushing for that extra second, that's bizarre, isn't it? Any other comments for Nürburgring? It's one of those places where I need a sat nav, because I end up getting halfway around the lap and going, oh, I wonder what I should have for tea.
I've got one comment, I guess. We had 30 odd people, I think, join up. Unfortunately, 3 didn't take the start, but a good turnout for a track that's very daunting. And everybody finished on the lead lap. That finish, 17 people on the lead lap, and then it was a couple of cars, a couple of laps down. But good on everybody for doing that, sticking with it.
Yeah, it's an achievement to get round one lap, in my opinion, because honestly, I'm all right at the first half of the lap because I've not crashed by then. It's very rare I actually see the second half of Nürburgring. So trying to remember it when you've only done it 3 times in your entire life is quite a challenge. I don't know whether anybody on the chat has got an opinion. I really don't know what they're talking about at the minute. They're all talking about how old they are. Really, guys? Discords for that, yeah. Any other comments about Nürburgring before we move on? Any surprises at Nürburgring?
No.
Johnny?
people made the extra lap. That was about it.
Yeah. I did wonder why it was still going way beyond when the race should have finished, but that's my lack of education kicking in.
We were that unsure whether he'd make it or not, that in my last pit stop I nearly short fueled the car a lap shorter, and I come off the jacks and I had to go back up on the jacks to put the extra fuel back. I lost about 15-20 seconds in the last pit stop. Just will he make it? Won't he make it? And yeah.
See, I waited in pit lane to repair as much as I could of the car, and I was watching my timing screen to get out of the pits before he turned up, so that I could do that extra lap, because it got me 2 more positions at the end of the race for other people that had crashed. So let's move on to something that's probably had more messages put on Discord than any other race so far this season. Barber. So 3 sprint races, yet another format. So we're talking about 3 different formats tonight. So we're earning our lack of money. Race number 1, or rather number 6 in our season, won by Chris Jackson, followed by you, Tony, and followed by you, Johnny, with Knight Rider in 4th, George in 5th, and Harold, who not seen feature at the top of races so much this season, so it was good to see his name return of the Stadler.
That's how I know NQR had a good setup for Barber, because Jamie McKnight was right up my arse at the end, and if that happened, it must be a bloody good setup.
I'm sure you'll get some comments from that in a minute.
He said he only needed 1 more lap.
So let's talk about the first race, right? Let's keep this segregated, because I ended up on the outside of turn 1, and in front of me was the biggest car park I'd seen for quite a long time. When I watched the replay back, there was 4 separate crashes in that first turn. I think, was it Nicole got messed up in the first one? It was, wasn't it? And one of the Esia cars spun. Yeah. and well, the very, very front of the field, you guys kind of got away, right, and avoided it all.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much the subtext to it. Any comments from race 1 other than everybody wrecked each other? And that was in order, yeah. That was the qualifying order.
Yeah, I think it was.
Jamie qualified ahead of me. I
Right.
think I got him off the line into turn 1, but
Okay,
that was it.
Yeah, it was kind of uneventful. Johnny was flashing his lights at me for a couple of laps, but after that, I didn't see them in the distance anymore. So
Did I flash my lights? Did I flash at you? Did I?
right past the start finish line a couple of times. Yeah. Anyways, I thought it was cute.
He was
Oh,
waving
okay.
to his friends. He was waving to his friends, Tony. That's fine.
Okay.
Trying to get the glint off the trophy from last season. That's what it was. Okay, round 7 then, which was the next.
I must have pressed the button by mistake as I was reaching for the whiskey. Just on the way, but it must have been a mistake.
Right, so race 2 or round 7, whichever one you'd prefer, at Barber. Nicole won that one. Some really good looking bloke came second. I'll remember his name shortly.
I didn't come second.
Nice cover. Mr. Bun the Baker Man playing Happy Families in third. He was trying to close on me the entire race, and I wasn't having a bar of it. SLV Steve came in fourth. Joshua Chin in fifth. And Sam Buzan in sixth or seventh. I can't remember which way around I've put it now. So this was just one of the most bizarre things. All I could hear all race was people saying about how many people had crashed into them. So from your perspectives, what was your take on it? And what do you put this down to? Is it congestion? Is it too much ability or too little ability? Where are we going with this? We'll start with Johnny.
Oh God! You sure you want me to answer this?
Go on then. It's controversy. We've got to get some more comments on this thing.
I think it's just bad driving, bad racing. People sticking their noses in, going for things they shouldn't be going for. Too desperate in turn 1. Lunges, like we said before. You know, there was a lot of carnage, I think, in race 2. And yeah, a lot of things going on. I got turned around in turn 1. Which again, I think was a bit unnecessary, but it's turn 1 of the race. It's half expected. It was unfortunate. As did George, as did Jamie, I think. Yeah, and then I had quite a good race, enjoyable race coming back through. But there were people going off everywhere. I think Tony went off a few times. It might be better to answer that one.
Yeah, go on then, Tony.
Yeah, and race 2, the only time I went off is when I was pushed off. So, anyways, yeah, it was unfortunate, but things happen.
Do you agree with the carnage report that Johnny's attributed to it?
Yeah, having reviewed those races, an awful lot of lockups under braking, and turn 1 at Barber's very difficult. So if you try and go 4 wide into turn 1 or turn 2 or go 4 wide up the hill, something's going to happen. And then we see that going down the hill into the chicane. There were a number of times where it was 3 wide in there. And
I'm laughing. Didn't you make it 4 wide into turn 1 on race 2?
I had the inside line. In fact, I was the head of all 3 of you. So,
Okay.
I'll use your line, Johnny. You should have all backed out and let me go.
Yeah. Okay.
Did that one result in a crash? The 4 wide in turn 1?
Yes.
Right.
Not for Tony, but for the rest of us. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Right.
No contact on my part.
So what should we all be doing then? What should we all be doing? We're all piling into a corner. Are we really going to wait for everyone around us to be patient, including ourselves?
I think the only way it happens is if that happens. That's the only way things get better. if there's no respect for anybody, then it's the difference between sim racing and real racing for me. I've done a lot of real racing, all over the world, won championships all over the world in real life.
Mhm.
I've got no respect for anybody. That's what you do in real life if you want to get anywhere. In this, it doesn't work. It just ends up in crashes. So if you want a good race, I would rather much have a clean battle that I don't ruin anybody else's race and take my time and finish where I finish than go for it and have no respect and just end up crashing everywhere.
So
That it needs everybody to have that same attitude. Otherwise, it doesn't work. It's no good one or two people having it. If Nickel touches anybody in any sort of battle, he will not benefit. He will wait. He will lift off. He'll retire himself from the race, same as we all do. You don't want to do it, and that's the only way it works. And that's why sometimes it gets frustrating for us because not everyone has that same attitude. I don't think.
So, when three cars are all aiming at the same corner, what's the hard and fast rule there then?
How do three cars all aim at the same corner? Somebody was there first. Somebody got alongside us. Somebody decided they would go be the third one in that situation. So the
So,
third one made a bad decision.
so how does the third
But
one for everybody that's watching? I'm not asking this to be
you'd have to
controversial or
wait.
be an
You'd
arse.
have to just wait. Just because you got the pace, it's not just having the. If you got the pace to make a move, doesn't mean you have to make the move. You have
Absolutely,
to be
but
sensible
how?
about it. If you want to respect everybody else,
Yeah. But how do I
you
know
have to back off
that
and wait
I'm
for
the
it.
one that's the third one in line? How do I
If
know?
you're at the start finish line into turn one, it's awkward. It's very awkward. But in any other situation, you're not all driving three wide the whole way around the lap. You are joining the party as the third person. That's a bad decision.
So I'll go back
You
to
know,
it. How does the third person know they're the third
well,
person?
you can see two cars in front battling.
And if you're all side by side, because Tony was saying
Yeah, but
three
how do you
cars
get
wide
side
through
by side?
through
That
the
only
chicane.
happens in turn one, doesn't it? At any other point, they would have been single file. They would have been two together. They never just appear three wide. Things develop in a process. So
Mhm.
you do know when you're going to be making it three wide.
Yeah, my point here is for all those other people with less talent than the two of you,
Well, it's not
and
talent, is it? If you can see
well,
two people battling in front, it's not worth attacking them
well,
because you will become and make it three wide.
talent does play into it, though. I think, Johnny, because having the talent means you can read the situation better through experience and
That's
talent.
counting, though, isn't it? If you can see two cars battling, you know it's a bit of a bad idea to get involved with them because
Um,
it will become three cars all together, all three wide in one corner,
yeah, and
and
I guess.
somebody's going to lose out. So again, if it was real life and there's a gap, you go for it because you don't care about them. But
Mhm.
in sim racing in a friendly league, if you dive up the inside of two cars battling, you know one of them's going to end his race because the
Oh
guy in
yeah,
the middle is going to shit himself, basically, or there'll be contact. The one that's going to lose, at least, is the guy on the outside. So by you going for that move on two guys, you, it's disrespectful. It's just going to end in problems every time, unless by some miracle they manage to get through it. But 9 times out of 10, it's going to end in death for the third guy on the outside, I would say.
and I agree with you. But the point I was trying to make and trying to get to was for those others of us in the races. What are we looking for to know that we need to lift? What are we looking for to know that we are the one that's going to cause that problem? Is it as simple as there's two cars in front of me fighting for that position? I shouldn't be mixing myself up in that.
Pretty much. Yeah.
I think you have to pick your battles.
Yeah. It's not just pick your battles, it's pick when to have your battles as well. The odds on if you, I mean, I had it a couple of times. There was two guys battling in front. They both sort of touched. I ended up getting the pair of them, and I wasn't even involved. I was just behind them. They hit each other, got all messed up, and I went past a pair of them in the two corners, the S's, the
Mhm.
hairpin S thing. I could have thrown it up the inside. I could have got involved. I closed on them quite quick, but it's pointless. 9 times out of 10, it plays out your way. And then what if you have that sort of attitude? it's contagious. People will respect the fact that you gave them a bit of time and a bit of respect, and they'll give you that same respect back. Generally speaking, if you don't show the respect, it spreads like wildfire. You get people with red mist and frustration, and then it all just goes to pot. But I mean, this is common sense, isn't it? So don't leave me saying it. But
There's
that
a
is
few
what
people out
frustrates
there
me in
that
the
were
league.
born with none. I'd like to think that I didn't do those silly rash punts down the inside, because I know what it's like to have that done to me. I'm pretty sure.
It's like when people sit there and go, quote Senna quote of it: if a racing driver no longer goes for a gap, he's no longer what a load of bollocks. Sorry, but if you there's a time and a place to do it.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can't just stick your nose in on every single gap. You know when a car's going to come across. You know when somebody's going. It's not that guy in front's responsibility to be jumping out of your way. So if you're going to put your nose in there, you really need to make sure it's in a sensible place and he's seen you come in, and he know you can't just spring it on people and just stick your nose in where it's highly unlikely. So, and there's a lot of that goes on.
So, Tony,
So
do you see where I'm trying to get to here? I'm trying to highlight to those that are watching, and those that are listening, or whatever they're doing, so that they can identify with being the person that will cause the crash.
I think it's a windy road you're on. I agree with Johnny to some extent that that people need to be aware. And what I see an awful lot of, just what I call stupid blocking, and movements on the track. Like, be predictable, stay on your line, and then let people deal with it. But if you're going to if you're slower, and I want to be really careful about how this sounds, but if you're 2 seconds a lap slower, and you decide that on in braking that you're going to change 2 lanes on me, that's not going to end up well. It's just not. So we need to think a little bit more about what's going on out there and survive more than 2 laps. Most of the carnage happened in the first 2 laps, 3 laps, when the tires are at their absolute worst. And one of the things I'm going to say, and people won't like it, but get your ass out on the track and practice. We put up practices every week, every other week, and there's nobody in them. The same guys are in them all the time, right? And those same guys are the ones that are up at the front all the time. Everybody else doesn't bother to show up. And it shows in the races. It's not an arrive and drive car. It just is not.
No, those are good comments.
Again, it's general racecraft as well. It's about putting practice in the car so you get confidence and can actually drive the car without using 100% of your brain. If you actually do some practice, you only use 70% of your brain because it becomes more natural, and you've got 30% left to worry about what's going on around you. Like Tony says, changing like lanes in the braking zone, that's not defending. That's asking for trouble. There's nothing wrong with being defensive, but go defensive early. Tell them to go to the outside. You can't chop and change your mind in the braking zones. It's not done. If anything happens after that, it's your fault, basically. So I agree with Tony on that. But yeah, there's lots of things. People are punting people off left, right, and centre. Nobody's waiting for anybody. Didn't see anybody waiting. There's, the things are supposed to happen and they don't happen. And again, I just think it's a respect thing. That if it goes and it's not there, it spreads, and it gets worse and worse and worse, because people think, there's somebody on the forum on the Discord has said, right, I'm elbows out from now on because that's all anybody else does. That's exactly my point. It's not a good way to be, because they shouldn't have to worry about that. It's not people's responsibility. As the car in front, it's the guys behind's job to get past you. It's not your job to keep an eye and make sure he doesn't hit you. It's his job. Your job as the car in front is when he does a move and gets a run on you and gets alongside, you have to go, okay, fair enough, he's done it. That is the overtake. It's not getting past on the exit and everything else. It's getting alongside, basically. Then you're in trouble for the corner. In sim racing, you leave each other room, you leave each other room. The smart move is to back out of it. In real life, 100% you back out of it once you've lost the inside, because they don't have to leave you room. And 9 times out of 10, they won't. So you learn that lesson very quickly.
Yeah, and that person, it was Andrew Hoffman that made the comments, and I went back this morning and I watched all 3 of Andrew's races to see what had happened, and he got turned 3 times in the 3 races. He was obviously frustrated, and there was no reason for him to be turned any of the 3 times that he was. The rest of the time, he drove nice, consistent laps. He stayed out of people's way. He pulled over and let people by. Yeah, and he was just running his race.
And when the people turned him, did they wait for him?
No, not one.
This is what I mean. These are the things that need to be enforced.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
And one of them was my teammates, and I've had a chat with that individual. And I know that he's sent an apology, but the other 2 guys are pretty quick guys, and
It doesn't matter. Everyone's got to have the same respect for everybody. It doesn't matter if you're faster, slower. It doesn't matter.
But anyways, I can understand the frustration, and I can understand why the comment is, I don't give a shit anymore, and I'm gonna, take it in my own hands. Well, if that happens, then the league's going to disband pretty quickly.
And bear in mind, he's the one that's actually putting it out there and saying, how many other people are thinking that? Because there's plenty of incidents going on. That's what concerns me. My little chat on the Discord wasn't moaning about, oh, I want to protest this, I want to protest that. I had a great few races and thoroughly enjoyed it. Nothing really happened apart from Tony's 4-wide incident, but we won't go there again. What I was arguing about was the fact that with the incidents are looked at with intent is the first thing that you look for, which is what I was told on the chat. And it was just a chat, it wasn't a complaint. That's what concerned me, because very few people have bad intent ever. And generally speaking, in any other league, you're kicked out if you do something intentionally. So incidents happen because of accidents. Accidents happen because people overdrive and are doing something wrong. And that's what needs to be pointed out, in my opinion. And generally speaking, it's all about respect. And if those things happen, everyone has a better experience, everyone does better, and things get better from there. If it's not dealt with, then things snowball and just get worse and worse. And it needs to be sort of led from the front, I think.
Well, it does. At the same time, we've said it many, many times. If you got an issue, have a discussion with that person, right? See if you can resolve it.
But that's the bad feeling. But the point, it doesn't stop it happening in the first place. That's where I'm coming from. We are all grown up, blah, 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 blah. But, that gets rid of the bad feeling afterwards. But ultimately, their Saturday night was ruined. I don't know who punted him off, but he had a terrible Saturday night because 3 people punted him off. Yeah, they have a chat afterwards and say sorry about that. And I'm sure he doesn't hold grudges. And everything is good. But ultimately, his Saturday night races were wrecked. That's what shouldn't be happening. And there's no need for it to happen. Because like we both just said, Andrew's one of the cleanest guys out there. He might not be one of the fastest guys out there, which I'm sure he don't mind me saying. But he does his utmost to be clean and keep out of people's way. And he's ultimately there to enjoy himself. And instead, he's upset enough to be putting complaints on the forum. That's not a good thing.
No, and
I agree.
And I agree with what Tony was saying about practice. Practice for me stops me being utterly dangerous to myself and other track users. It doesn't make me good. It doesn't really give me a great deal of racetrack experience, because generally I'm tootling around on my own. I did quite a lot of laps of Barber actually before that race, and I do join occasional Thursdays, but Vulcan do a Tuesday one where we can practice in our own safety. So I do the laps, but it doesn't make me good. It doesn't make me understand racecraft any better. You can only do that when you're in experience of the 30-odd cars on a track, right? And how many times do you do that? I suppose if you're official racing in this car, you will do, yeah?
To a certain extent. I mean, another way of saying what I'm saying with the respect thing is you're all in teams. How many times do you go out on a track as a team and have 3 or 4 or 5 of you, and you're all battling and you're all swapping and going side by side through the corners to see what it's like, and not one of you is defending. So you're all swapping places. Someone's up the inside, you're too wide. You practice, because we do that as XVR. It's good practice for the races.
Mhm.
That is the most fun ever.
Mhm.
And if we did that in the races and only worried about defending if it was the last lap because you're trying to hang on to a position, it'd be so much more fun. But it's, people defend lap 1 and people defend lap 3, and you're just thinking, why? You're just costing yourself time and inciting frustration. And that's not to say they should jump out the way. Everyone's entitled to do their own thing. But the thing is, if you leave room, give them room on the inside instead of defending and changing in the braking zone, you might have the inside for the next corner. He'll respect you left him room, you respect that. It all works both ways, but that is so much fun. Crashing and having nights ruined through desperate moves is not fun for anyone.
No, you're right. And Jamie's put a comment on the top chat thing, and it says, isn't it really more about the ambition versus ability equation? I suppose that plays
Ability's
a
got
part of
nothing
it.
to do with it. But it is to a certain extent. Yeah, people think they're better than they are when they've got a bit of grip. But it's top people make mistakes as well as some of the slower people in the league. Everyone's capable of making mistakes. Some make more than others. I won't go there, but yeah,
Well, I'm
it's
one of them,
it is what it is. Everyone's going to make mistakes. The thing is, mistakes for me happen when you're over driving and you're too hot headed and you're too desperate and you're too. What is the point of throwing it up the inside of somebody and getting all out of control for 12th place to make yourself 11th?
I'd be happy with 11th, by the way.
But then you end up, but 9 times out of 10, you end up taking somebody out because it was too much of a move. It was too desperate. You almost, people think that you have to go for moves for overtakes. You don't go for any overtake. Overtakes present themselves as the obvious thing to do, and they've already been half accomplished by the time you're there, generally speaking.
And do you think everybody else is aware of that?
And overtakes what happens a corner and a half before it actually happens, because you have the overspeed, you have the run, you've got alongside them, then you can think about the overtake. To come up behind someone and say he's not defending, you're 2 cars behind, I'm going to brake late here, it's going to go wrong. It doesn't matter if that's me doing it, Tony doing it, Andrew Hoffman doing it, anybody, it's going to go wrong. And that's what people don't realise, really. You have to create an overtake, not just decide you're going to take it, because when you do that, it goes wrong.
Yeah,
Especially in sim racing.
Yeah, and to that point, does that render the Wheel of Fortune that we've got going on a catalyst to this situation?
It shouldn't make any difference because it's all decisions.
Yeah, but you have got a propensity to put the faster guys behind the slower guys for the.
Yeah, but race 2, I was dead last. I come all the way through up to 10th, 11th, had great battles. Race 3, I was 11th or 12th, I started, I think. Ended up coming 2nd. Great battles, great racing with people. All right, half of the people in front of me crashed and took themselves out, but the people that were still left there, we had great side-by-sides with Harold Stadler, with various people, Marco Namella, Kane But it was brilliant. I thoroughly enjoyed it. That's what I'm here for.
Mm-hmm.
It's so doable. The fact that fast guys are behind and the slow guys in front should have nothing to do with it. It's about respect. Just because we're faster doesn't entitle us to be past people, and it shouldn't mean people look in their mirrors and jump out of our way either. It should just be fair and clean and fun. leave each other room, and what plays out plays out. It took me 3 laps to get past Harold, and I was a second a lap faster than him.
Mm-hmm.
But it was great,
Yeah.
and he did nothing wrong. He just put his car in a good place, and it's so easily doable. It's just desperation and bad moves, and that's why I was having the conversation about protests and intent is not right and blah blah blah, just to try and understand what direction things are going, because no one intends to do anything badly. It's a mistake. That's why it's called an accident. But there should, if people aren't educated, for want of a better word, in what's right and what's wrong, then nothing changes.
Yeah, and we've got to remember that we're in season 8. We're well into 3 years of having this league now. So it's not something that's going to go away. Should people be protesting then, in that case, Tony? Should they raise these things officially instead of just whinging and pissing about it in the forum, in order that some action's taken in order to deter this? Someone shot Tony.
No, I'm just trying to digest it. It's I don't like what happens in the forum. I think there's too much whining and ambiguity to the whining.
Ambiguity.
Like if you got, thank you. If you got something to say it. Otherwise, everyone's sitting there wondering who the hell you're talking about.
On our, if you're talking about the last thing we had on there, that was literally a question we asked about the wording, saying that protests will not be reviewed unless you can prove clear intent to harm somebody.
It's not a new rule. It's been there for 3 months.
Okay, so name me an incident when somebody shows clear intent to hurt somebody in race.
I've been in some official races where
they're not official races. That's deliberate. They get banned for it.
Okay,
yeah.
They get banned from other racing for weeks.
Apologies. Hang on a second, Johnny. Apologies from the team, the administrative team, that we have a word in there that you disagree with.
No. It wasn't the word in.
I get that.
I disagree with it. It was to understand if that was the case. So and only deliberate contact would be
published 3 months ago, and everybody was supposed to read them, and everybody had an opportunity to say, "I don't understand what that rule means." Right?
Okay, so let me put it to you this way. So if I'm going for a corner and I'm taking a wide entry to that corner because that's the line, and somebody sticks their nose just inside the quarter panel because there's a gap there that's always going to close, but at that moment there's a gap there. Someone sticks their nose in, I turn in, and there's a crash. End of my race. That's just unfortunate for me.
Okay,
what we should do, I think what we should do, intend to hit him.
I get it, Johnny. You've made your point. You've made your point over and over and over again.
Sorry it frustrates you. It's a discussion. It does. It's not a complaint. It's a discussion, Tony.
As part of the administration team,
as was the thing
that has to review all these protests, right? We have to make a decision on, fault and no fault. But if you get 25 protests after every race for incidental contact, that isn't going to work either. We've been through 8 seasons now. 8 seasons we've been doing this, and we've had it where after one race, we've had 15 protests. Then we shouldn't even be racing anymore, right? You got to decide what you're going to protest, right? If you think you've been done wrong, then put a protest in. Don't have a
right. But if the people looking at the protest say that only if there's clear intent to harm another car will anything be done about it.
Okay, and
you
again,
don't think that's
we've heard your complaint or your concern,
but you're not giving an explanation for that at all.
We've heard your concern about the wording.
Getting angry about it, but it was just a discussion with JP.
Again, we will take your comments and we'll decide if we're going to change the wording of that. As it is right now, if you feel like you need to protest, go ahead and put in a protest. Wear your pen out.
But nothing will be done if no one did it deliberately.
That's not true.
But that's what JP said was true.
It doesn't say that in there, and we do
It
have
does
pit
say that
lane
in there.
starts.
That's the only reason we questioned it. We weren't complaining. We asked a question and had a sensible conversation with JP. Nobody was in a bad mood about it. There was no frustration. It was just a question to JP, and we had a discussion about it. The only person getting wound up about it is you, which
I am
honestly I don't
because you keep
understand.
going on about it. Drop it.
Yes, sir.
Right, children, I'm stepping in. So, sounds like we are reviewing the wording due to its not ambiguous nature, but due to its propensity to exclude certain incidents if it interpreted absolutely literally. So we'll move on from that one, even though I'm pretty sure we've got the most people watching we've had all night. So maybe I should have let it run further. And Team Chimera, whoever that is, has just protested that conversation. So that's quite funny.
It's an
Right.
interesting conversation. I think. I can't believe he's getting so wound up about it. It's great.
Because somebody's got to own a situation, and the admins do own that situation. It's worth the comments, it's worth the challenges, it's worth the conversation, and it's worth doing something about it at the end so that we resolve these situations. I'd love to be in these races where we've got 30, maybe even 40 cars, but I want them to be in that social situation where everybody's enjoyed themselves rather than having to sport their frustrations on a Discord chat. And I think that's where both of you guys are coming from as well, right?
Yeah, I literally just asked a question about the wording and if it was deliberate only. I was told yes, and that was it. It went on and people giving examples, and you're sitting there saying, "Yeah, we need to look at that. We may need to change that." I mean, that's completely fine. I was just pointing out that it seems strange to me.
Every incident,
Tony's answer is that suck it up, wear your pen out. Nothing's changing. We've done this for years. Get over it. You're
I
always
didn't say
moaning.
nothing was changing. What I said was, we'll take a look at it, Johnny. Every incident that is brought to our attention, we review it, and then
Okay.
we make a decision on it. And people get warnings, and people get pit lane starts.
But that doesn't do any harm. If I get a pit lane start in race 1, I'm at the front of the grid for race 2, probably, or ahead of all the other fast guys. Is that really a penalty?
Okay, so what do you want us to do, Johnny?
It's-
Maybe you know what? Maybe you should volunteer for the administration team, and you can help
I did,
us out.
about a month ago.
Huh.
Well, we'll see you in the forum. Right, so race 3, because we never even got to that, was won by Knight Rider. He made it clear just then, because he was asking who Johnny came second to. So that obviously means that Johnny came second. George came third. Harold in a very...
What race are we on now?
We're on race 3 now of Barber. I really wish you'd keep up, Johnny.
Oh, yeah, you got it. Yeah.
Rich Warmingham in 5th. Marco Namela, is he still in the chat? Yeah, he is, yeah. And then Chris Jackson rounding out the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I actually thought that the format was good. I didn't like all the crashing, as we've already said. Tyres. And the damage model. So I noticed the difference with the damage model. Had they done something with that damage model?
Yeah,
Right.
they fixed the what they call the crash box, and what they've done is they've strengthened it so that minor hits or brushes at 30 kilometers an hour on a guardrail won't give you a meatball. It's not going to be perfect, but it's better.
Yeah, it was definitely better. When you got punted, Johnny, did you notice any difference with the damage?
Not really.
No.
I didn't have too many. It was only a very light in the quarter panel that I just had nowhere to go. 360'd me.
Yeah.
I don't think I had any damage after that. But I can't say I've noticed a lot.
One of the weirdest ones was my race 3. So I was racing with Tyler, and somebody else in front of Tyler, and I came alongside him or halfway up his car, and he turned across me because I don't think he realised I was there. To be fair, when I was racing through those corners, my spot. I was going car left, car right. You're in the middle, 20 wide.
I saw that. I saw that
Did you?
incident. Yeah, and
Right.
that's a perfect example of like
So go on then.
racing incident. That was as
Walk me
much
through that one.
Tyler's fault as anybody else's as yours. You were entitled to go for that,
Yeah.
but he was ahead of you. That for me, that's like
Oh
a
yeah,
racing
I
incident.
wouldn't
He
argue
turned in
that.
on you, and
Yeah.
he lost out.
Yeah, I
He
think there
was
was
the one who went spinning off. You carried on. I'd say he brought that on himself.
No, I didn't carry on in that one. I ended up crashing into the Armco barrier on the right hand side, and this is where I was going with this. My car got jammed in the Armco barrier. I didn't have much damage, but my car wouldn't move. I couldn't reverse. I couldn't go forward. I couldn't do anything.
Well, I would say that was risky for you to go for it in that corner there.
Oh
But
yeah,
it's not his job to be looking out behind him. But he left the door so wide open, and then turned in so sharply across the corner that
yeah.
he was as much to blame as anybody else. That's like a race incident where it was just both cars to blame, really, in my opinion.
But my car digitally got attached to that Armco barrier, so I had to physically reset.
I've had that a couple of times.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
New thing. I don't know if that's something new or that happened before, but I've
Mm.
found that you hit a bit of Armco somewhere, the front nose just sticks to it and you stop dead.
Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it? Don't know why they put magnets on the front of the car. Right, we've already talked about protests a little bit. New drivers. Any new driver call-outs from you two?
Stefan Slashler is new to the league and seems to be doing fairly well.
Cool. Anyone from you, Johnny?
Yeah, the same. Wayne Sanderson seems to be doing all right.
Yeah, he's come high up the finishing a couple of times, and he's doing all right in the league as far as I'm aware as well, isn't he?
I haven't actually looked at the points of the league for a while.
Well, in that case, let me entertain you. So, in the Racetech Cup, George is currently winning. Do you want to know the scores or the drop scores? Did Clyde say there was a problem with the drop scores? Clyde, get on the typey thing and tell us if there's a problem with the drop scores.
There is an issue with it that's being resolved.
Okay. So if we go on the non-drop scores, which is what it's ordered in anyway, George is currently in first place with 1,565 points. Nearly 100 points, what, 99? Oh, no, yeah, 99 points behind is Nicole. Then we've got Chris Jackson. Then we've got the Knight Rider. Then we've got SLV. That's Steve, just for anybody that wasn't paying attention before. Johnny, you're 8th. And you're on 1,198, so 350 odd points behind.
Nah.
I'm sure you can make that up next race. Tony, you are right behind him, 70 points behind him, 1128. Comments?
George did great.
Yeah. George is knocking it out of the park at the minute. Johnny?
Well played to George. He's going well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I obviously had all my incidents, but yep. We won't go there because we'll get on that discussion again.
Yeah, I don't want to go back to that. That's clubbing it to death, isn't it? Like a baby harp seal.
Yeah.
But
what can you do?
I mean, you two would probably not argue that the start to your season in the Racetech Cup's not been ideal. You've both been caught up in various different crashes. Are you attributing that to the more populated grids this season, or just random happenstance, and it'll come back to you in the rest of the season?
Just lack of talent, that's all.
Don't believe that for a minute. I'm the one commentating. I'm the one with no racing talent. Johnny?
Yeah, I'm not going to go there.
Fair enough. In terms of, where are we? Right, the club championship. This is the important one because I'm third in it. So Steve LaValle is heading the club championship. He's quite a way out in front as well. I don't know the scores. I didn't write those ones down. 1.5 Team GC, Greg Carr, is in second. I'm in third. Andrew Hoffman's in fourth. And then the rest of Team Vulcan, headed up by Mike Frost, then Clyde, and then Bill. So there's quite a lot to go for there. In terms of the team championship, XVR, who are they? Are heading up the championship 28 195 points with NQR Blue behind that in
What
2709.
XVR team? XVR Sim
See,
Racing or XVR Sim Racing Team?
See, you've done that on purpose, haven't you? Because I don't know, because they both sound the same. Hang on a minute. Oh, just dropped my notebook. Hang on. Where is it? I'm going to have a look now, because that's just
Oh,
not
don't
good, is
worry.
it?
If it's not easy to see.
It's not, is it?
If one of them's up there, that's good.
It says Sim Racing is in first and Sim Racing Team is in fourth.
Why, Johnny? Why? Why make two teams that sound so similar? What's that?
Because what else can you do? You can't go Sim Racing XVR 1. Yeah, so we're the top guys, we're better than you. The 2, we're all equal in XVR. So it's XVR Sim Racing, XVR Sim Racing Team.
But one's not a team.
No superiority. There is a team. So XVR Sim Racing is me, Nickel, and Rich.
Yeah,
And
but you're not
XVR
a team.
Sim
The other
Racing
team is the
team
club.
is Steve, Tyler, and Lane. But Lane never turns up. 'Cause he
All
can't
I'm
be bothered.
saying is, from a commentator's perspective, nothing more confusing. So
Well, now you
anyway,
know. It's all been straightened out.
yeah. So one of the XVR teams is winning. NQR Blue is in second. Texans Fist. No, I can never say this. Somebody do it.
Fitzsty.
Thank you. Cheers. In third, the team version of XVR, the ones where they're all friends, in fourth, and Esia in fifth. There's only two of those guys, and they do really well. Vulcan right-hand drive, because everybody wants to know where they are. We're holding back in reserve until later in the season, and we expect a sweep victory in the final round. So the next race for the Racetech.
One of your drivers is worth the Lane for turning up, isn't he? He's always gallivanting around the States and stuff.
Oh, he's terrible, that one. Absolutely terrible. All he did for 2 weeks was post the enormous food he was eating. I'm surprised they let him back on board a plane, or at least charged him 3 times the cost of the ticket. So next round is Barcelona. Right. So some people think that Barcelona is one of the most boring tracks in the world. I quite like it. I think it's a bit Watkins Glenish. I think it's going to be, yeah, ish like Watkins
I
Glen.
wouldn't. Okay.
Well, yeah, we'll get your opinions in a sec. I think it's going to be interesting because I don't know that a lot of people even own it yet, because I didn't before the beginning of this week. I've done a few laps on it. I'm, as usual, not very fast. What's your opinion, Johnny?
I like it.
Mm?
It's got some good variation circuits on it as well. I think it's a great track. Yeah, love it.
Do you think it's similar to anything, or
Not Watkins Glen.
no?
It's just a proper race circuit. I think it's got some interesting, lots of different types of corners. So there's some slow corners, there's some tight corners, there's some fast corners, there's some blind corners, there's some negative camber corners. There's some big curves, small curves. I just like it as a circuit. Some curves you can use, some you can't. It's got every type of corner on it. Yeah, I enjoy it there. I like Barcelona.
So for the masses, and by masses, given that there's 4 of us in here, that makes 11 people that are watching right now. What curves are you describing being avoiding, or are you keeping that secret to yourself?
No. I'll tell you what ones. So
Go on then.
you
Let's
can
have it.
use the short flat ones, but stay away from the big high ones. Free advice.
Oh dear. Yep. And
Always happy to help.
so you heard it here first. Common sense. Anything you particularly like about it?
It looks nice and new. The curbs are nice and shiny.
Yeah, even the big ones.
Even the big ones.
Right, that's cool.
Have you done any
it's
laps
just a nice
on the GP circuit, Johnny?
Yeah, not in the V8. But have I done any? No, I don't think I have in the V8. I've done plenty in the TCR. And I think another car. I can't remember what one. Might have been the V8. I might have done some around in the V8. I can't remember.
Okay.
But I've done plenty of laps around there. So yeah, in other cars as well. So yeah, quite looking forward to that.
So
It's nice and wide as well, so it should there's plenty of room for good, clean racing. So it should be good. Totally different from Barber. You know, there's probably at least 6 overtaking places around there. So it's with plenty of room for side by side stuff. So it should be good.
Yeah. Tony, have you tried it yet?
I turned a few laps this afternoon on it just to get an idea. We did official on the short track when the new car first came out. Have to admit, I did not do very well on the short track. I really struggled actually. So I don't know what we're going to get on the big track. Times are the times that I ran this afternoon actually were about 1:48 a lap, and I don't have anything to judge that by. So no idea if that's fast or not fast or what. So we'll see.
Well, if you want to compare to my retarded time, I did a 1:49.8.
Yeah, then maybe we're in the ballpark.
Well, I don't know whose ballpark I'm in, but probably someone with just one arm. Something that I've missed, and we'll only do it for Barber. Who's the driver of that meeting for either one of you? Johnny, we'll go with you first. Sorry, Tony. Even though you started talking first, still going to go to Johnny. Johnny. Someone shot Johnny. Johnny can't decide. Johnny's dead. Tony, who was your driver of the meeting?
Well, if we don't say Jamie McKnight, he's going to have a conniption here on the chat. So
he's already having some sort of aneurysm as we speak. Right, Jamie McKnight, then, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that there was a standout actually. Based on the results in the 3 races. Honorable mention to yourself for your wonderful performance. I'm not sure that we'll ever see a repeat of that, but that was fantastic.
No, it's guaranteed that you won't. Johnny, have you rejoined us? Have we lost Johnny? I think we have. Definitely. Right, it's going to get quiet in here now. Right, we'll move on. I've just got to go back to my cheat sheet. I didn't know that Clyde used a cheat sheet. That's pretty bad, isn't it?
He wings it all the time.
He's winging something. Chicken wings, usually. So, iRacing news. GT4. That's on my list of things to talk about. I bought the, the big Porsche thing, whatever that is. I bought that the other day and turned some laps with a
RSR.
Hey?
The RSR, yes.
Yeah, that's the one. It doesn't feel very fast when you're driving it. It's very strange. So the tire model on the GT and the proto cars. What is that? You're not gonna have to translate these things for me, Tony.
The prototype car's got an update on the tire, and the GT4 Porsche is out there. I haven't tried either, so unfortunately, I don't have any input.
Right.
Hello, I'm back. Sorry.
Oh my God, he's awake. What happened? You get shot?
No, I just had to do something. Got dragged away quickly.
That's right, everybody. Johnny went for a poo. Or as we were calling it in the Spa Endurance, going for a foggy, because we were convinced that he'd parked his car because he was going for a dump and he was going to get back in it later on and carry on driving, but he never did. He had something more important to do in his private life. So, your standout driver for Barber, do you even have one?
Not at this moment. Standout driver for Barber, probably have to say Chris Jackson is rapid.
Yeah, he was very fast actually. Saw him disappearing off into the distance a few times. Do you own the GT?
I think Jamie McKnight was all right. It was quite surprisingly, but he probably should have won one of the races at least. And I don't think he quite did. But he was all right. But Chris Jackson for.
Yeah, so Jamie McKnight's been voting himself pretty much the entire chat for the best driver that night. So based on that, it's not him. But never mind. Do you own the GT4s, Johnny, have you ventured into that territory?
Yep.
Right, okay. So I bought the Porsche, that big Porsche that you put your foot down, it doesn't really move.
Yes.
What's your opinion on the GT4s? Because they're new to us, yeah?
Yeah, I like it. It's a bit understeery, but it's a shame they did the it's like the track day car. It's not actually the race car.
All right.
So therefore it has traction control and ABS.
Oh, so you're saying it's
Whereas
like the pace car?
I think the race car doesn't have either the traction or the ABS, one or the other. So it's like the track day car that you could go and buy that car basically and drive it on the
Right.
road.
Okay. Oh, I couldn't because
Which
I
is
don't
a
earn
little
that
bit
much.
disappointing, but it's still fun. It's a good car. I think the series is going to be good. I'll be doing it. The iRacing officials. It's mixed in with the TCR, which is also good. And I think in the right hands, they're quite close comparison-wise, time-wise.
Mm-hmm.
So potentially it could be quite interesting. Obviously, one front-wheel drive, one rear-wheel drive. So yeah, it could be good.
Have you got them both, or just got?
I got them both. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I've only got the Porsche. What's the Audi like? It is the Audi, isn't it?
Yeah, the Audi's good. It's obviously front-wheel drive,
Yeah.
so it's the work of the devil. But it's once you get going, it's surprisingly good. You can have some good racing in it. Obviously, I used to do some 60-car grid racing, which was good fun. But yeah, it's all right. It's the tyres take a while to come in, but once they're in, there's a lot of grip in both cars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So
that's a part that you can burn the tires up pretty quick too. Eh?
yeah, you got to be careful. So I think it actually helps us in the V8 because you've got to be very careful with the throttle input. Although it's not a lot of power, you could just cook your tyres. So
Worth
but they're
knowing.
both good cars. I like the direction things are going with iRacing and these cars. I think there's another GT4 coming, BMW, which should be good as well. So yeah, looking forward to giving that a go. Might be detrimental to my V8 practice, but it's too much fun to avoid.
So do they actually end up as different classes, those two vehicles? Because on the timing screens they're different
Yeah.
colours. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they do anyway. But like I say, I think they're going to be very. If you get some quick guys that know what they're doing in the TCR, I think they'll be very close to the Porsche. I think it's going to be quite interesting to.
I don't know why, but Jamie's calling you a bastard. But maybe that's just normal. I'm not sure.
That's all right. Not a problem.
So what else have I got on here? No. Right. Well, I've run out of my notes, and on Clyde's very terrible cheat sheet, answer questions from live chat. I'm not sure that anybody was asking many questions. Go on. Oh, there's always one from Clyde. Is it about food?
Nope.
Taking points away from the results discourage some bad driving.
Is that the question?
That's the question.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Discuss. So, I'm guessing this is. Should we take points off people's overall point score if we exhibit them doing bad driving in protest? Is that right?
I think that's what he's asking. Yes.
Okay. Opinion. Tony first.
It might if you made the penalty severe enough, I guess. But then you're subject to the discretion of the stewards to determine if it's really bad driving or if it's just an accident or if it's just stupidity.
Because we took away the reward for a clean race.
Yes, we did, and we just deduct for incidents now.
Yeah, as opposed to bunches of them.
Yeah. Yeah, the 15 incident thing probably is making some people think a little differently when they get near that number, so that they don't get a drive-through.
Less impactful in a sprint race, though, right? Because you've not got that
absolutely.
many laps to generate 15.
Yeah, but anyways,
maybe
I don't know. Johnny?
Maybe look at scale it. So if it's an endurance race, make it 20. If it's a standard feature race, make it 15, and then I don't know, less than that for a sprint. I don't know. Johnny, your opinion?
I think it would help. I think it would calm people down.
What do you think would be a good number, Johnny?
I think it depends on the severity of the incident. If you end somebody else's race, then it should probably be quite high.
See, we did something like that in previous seasons, didn't we, Tony?
And the other thing is, I mean, I don't see the difference between a mistake, an accident. They're the same thing. It's racing cars and driving on the limit like that is all about getting to the limit without going over it. That's the skill. If you're making mistakes and going over it, it should be punished because you're doing something wrong. Especially in a simulator, it's taking it too far because you're taking away other people's enjoyment. That's how I see it. And I wouldn't just take points off people. You need to explain to them why, so that they can realise what they're doing and make alterations to that in the future. That's how I would like to see things dealt with. That's how most other leagues deal with things. But yeah, it's not up to me, as it's been clearly made clear. I don't want to upset anybody anymore.
I think we need to stop Jamie from having some sort of childish fit. Jamie McKnight won race 3 at Barber. So there we go. It's all said now. Okay. Were there any other questions, Sam? No. So, of the 10 of you that are still watching, given the fact that 4 of us are sat here, you were awful at asking questions. And all I can attribute that to is the fact that I'm in here and not asking questions over there.
So Bill said, are you saying that nobody should be aggressive? Is that aimed at what I'm saying here? If
Possibly.
that's the case, then there's a line of aggression. It's all right to be mildly aggressive, but as soon as you affect somebody else's race negatively, you've crossed that line. And not just by them losing a position. You know, a little bit of side-by-side rubbing, if nobody loses out, isn't the end of the world. That's hard racing. Hard racing where somebody disappears off into the scenery and hits the wall, that's not hard racing. That's just rubbish racing. It's rubbish driving. It's too much.
So are we saying that this is or isn't a contact sport?
It's not a contact sport. Full stop. Motor racing is not a contact sport. It is.
So it is rubbing race.
To tap somebody up the arse into a corner and then go past is punishable by black flags all the time. If it's spotted. It's got ABC, advantage by contact. It's the easiest way to get past anybody, and you don't do it. It's illegal.
Yeah, you see it in NASCAR 100%. All the time. Somebody gives.
Yeah, but NASCAR's different. NASCAR's got its own little rules. That's a completely different discipline. Circuit racing is a non-contact sport.
Have you watched the BTCC lately?
Yeah, and they gave a lot of penalties out behind closed doors. It's a non-contact sport. Bit of side-by-side rubbing is fine. You push somebody off the track, the guy on the inside has the advantage. He can pretty much do what he likes. And there's no respect there. That's the difference between BTCC and sim racing. That's why, I won't mention any names here, but people, if you treat it, and if I drove in this how I drive in real life, you pump people off everywhere, because as soon as you claim the inside, I have to leave you no room. I run you off. Nobody goes past you on the outside. It's the biggest insult you can possibly have in real life. You don't allow it. And if you have the inside, you own the track. You are the car in front, you own the track. The guy behind will back out because of the risks involved. You don't have them risks here. And if you have respect, then it all works, and it's very different. You know, there's not thousands of pounds on the line, or you don't have friends in real racing, generally speaking, if you're any good, because you can't have friends. Everyone has to be scared of you. You have to. They'll think you're a nutcase. That's the way it works. It's as much mind games as it is racing. But that can't work on this. So it just leads to disaster.
Yeah, just jumping on what Clyde's busy saying on here. So he said, turn somebody and don't give the place back, get a penalty, or turn somebody. 100%. Yeah. Turn somebody and end their race, points deduction.
Yep.
Turn somebody and give the place back. Now what do you do? Is that done? Is that a resolved situation?
If they protest it, you've affected their race. Okay. It's that. But if you, I would argue that if you turn somebody, especially as one of the fast guys, if you turned somebody and then you waited and effectively destroyed your own race, waiting for them to give them the place back, highly unlikely they're going to protest you.
Yep.
Um,
But it's still done,
but
isn't
if
it?
they did, you turned them.
Yeah, it's still done though, isn't it?
Still, yeah, you still can get a penalty if they protest it.
Yeah. Okay. Tony, either of those scenarios or any of those scenarios ring something that appeals to you as a
I think
solution?
it gives us lots of food for thought for the rules for the coming season.
Mm.
I'm sure we'll have lots of input from everyone, and then Clyde ultimately will decide, but we'll figure it out. I'm sure, and we'll try and make it more enjoyable for everybody.
Yeah. Okay. So
That's all that my questions on the forum and Discord and everything is making it more enjoyable for everybody. It's not for my own personal benefit. I honestly don't care if I win this, win that. I've won it already. It doesn't matter. But I just want to have fun racing and see everybody else having fun racing, and that's what everything's all about. I don't mind being told I'm wrong and I'm not interested. Fair enough, but it's only questions. You don't get anywhere if you don't ask questions.
oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's the right thing to do. We need the discussion. We need to panel the group to a point and make sure that everybody's in agreement. And then, as Clyde said there, we'll sort it for season 9. Arguably, we're quite far into season 8 now. So, have we got any more topics for discussion at the minute? Anybody, either of you two, want to bring anything to the foreground? Sam,
I
have we
would.
missed anything?
I wouldn't mind asking a question. Maybe I appreciate Johnny's input on this because it seems that we've had a lot of
Why am I
incidents
scared?
this year. No, 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 no,
Good.
no, no. I think this is an honest question. Should we reconsider the types of tracks that we're using for the various formats? And I was thinking,
I would say to
no, okay.
sorry,
Okay.
carry on. Yeah.
I was just wondering if on a super sprint type weekend, when you do have the reverse grids, should we be looking for a track that doesn't have the um, corners that are going to invite an incident on lap 1? So if you think of a track like Mosport, might be a little bit more open, a little wider.
What's more sport? The right hander, is
Canadian,
it? And then the blind left, the second turn that
yeah,
drops
yeah,
downhill?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm just wondering if it's the type of track that might be contributing to this, or do we need to rethink that at all?
I don't think so. I don't think there's any such thing as a bad track. I think it's just people's decisions and people's attitudes and aggressiveness and decision and respect. I don't think that if you have to be just as patient if you're in Barcelona as if you're in Barber. The track doesn't matter. The opportunities are there. They're not there. You've still got to be patient. It's just bad decisions and bad racing called crashes. Not bad.
Just
Not
we did such a good job at Lime Rock with our first super sprint. If I can't recall, were you in that race, Johnny? Were you racing that?
I can't remember. Possibly.
Anyways, the Lime Rock, we had super sprints there, and we had fabulous racing throughout all 3 races. And then, of late, it's been
I think a little bit. It could be. I mean, you could put it down to the tyre model. Inspires bad racing at the moment, i.e., like the ambition over talent thing that Jamie McKnight was saying, because you have got so much good, and you get a lot of it in the TCR. And the TCR is very susceptible to it. You can set that car up to have lots of instant grip. So at the start of the race, you will be very quick, but you will drop off massively. So most of the fast guys will sacrifice that to a certain extent at the start, and give up that pace in the setup and be extremely cautious to have the longevity. Now, what that inspires in the officials is that people have loads of front end grip, and where they're on their 10th on the grid, they suddenly think, "Oh my god, I can get past this guy." And they have a bit more ambition and talent because they suddenly think they're quicker, and I must be amazing. I must have got better than this guy, and they start overdriving the car because they've got more available grip, and they're using everything they've got, and they're not thinking about the longevity of the race. They're just thinking about what's right in front of them at that moment, and you can't really afford to do that. You need to see the bigger picture. And I think the tyres are a little bit similar in the V8. You know, some people were taking it easy at the start of the races because they want to look after the tyres and have them for the long distance. And others see that as a vulnerability and want to jump in and get involved. And it does inspire a little bit of bad decision making, but it's still the driver that makes the decision. And if ultimately, if you qualify 10th and somebody else has qualified 7th, that's for a reason. You know, Chris qualified first, I qualified first, 4th. Chris was faster than me. Jamie qualified 3rd, I qualified 4th. Jamie was faster than me. You have to accept that. That's your pace. How the race plays out can change things, but you have to accept what your pace is. And people don't like to do that. They suddenly go, oh, well, I'm here. Oh, I can get past him in turn 2. Yeah, but the guy's faster than you. You've got to hold him up for the next 12 laps. Is it really worth it? That all this turn 1 shenanigans is crazy because you put yourself ahead of people that have just proven that they're faster than you. And then you wonder why things go wrong. Because then suddenly you are looking in your mirrors, you are distracted. That if people accepted where they were a lot more, they would progress a lot faster. And that might sound counterintuitive, but there's a lot of truth in that.
No, that does make sense. But so taking Tony's point on board, at Barcelona, with the same field and the same grid situations, would we see the same pileups as we saw at Barber, do you think?
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah, the very first turn is a right-left chicane.
Yeah.
You know, with a fairly long straight and no grip for the first 3 laps. So, you know, it wouldn't surprise me to see a number of lockups going into turn 1, unless people decide that they don't want to crash.
You basically have to decide what's more important: your respect for everybody else in the league and having a clean race, or getting a good position. And you don't have to necessarily give up one or the other, but if you value where you finish in that race more than your respect for anybody else in there, then 9 times out of 10 you're going to create carnage. If you respect everybody, you'll probably get better results, and everyone else will have a better time as well.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that.
Clyde's asking if rolling starts would help. We'd all be going faster into the first corner.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of rolling starts.
I don't know.
Doesn't that make it worse?
Yeah, it might make it worse. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, rolling starts, they're not always ideal, are they? I get them. I get the point of them for oval racing. I know that some of the World Endurance Series, they have rolling starts as well, don't they, for standard tracks? If you, I don't know what the hell I'm trying to come up with there, but you know, a normal track where you got left and right. But I think, yeah, what you're really calling for here is everybody to drive sensibly for, well, even if they could keep it buttoned down for the first series of turns, at least it gives us a chance to all get round, right?
Yeah,
but
the other thing is that crashes inspire crashes. So if somebody takes you out in turn 1, you go red mist, you're going to not show respect. But it's just a snowball effect, you know.
Even if it's not that, Johnny,
happens.
You've got a load of second-hand cars making their way around the track half speed of all the ones in front of them, which is going to end up with them out of place again once they've pitted. Because that happens to me regularly because I crash a lot. Not for the reasons that we're stating here. It's just because I don't have the talent.
You know what the answer is almost? Is if you started a race and banned overtaking lap 1. That would be really interesting. It would be rubbish, but it would be so. I bet you would have the most amazing races.
Well, actually, I've been in a league that bans any overtakes for the first 3 corners, and it does settle things down. It doesn't eliminate it, but it does settle things down. Yeah.
Clive's just said anybody causing an accident on lap 1 gets a race. In other words, a ban for the next round or the next week. Worth anything?
It's harsh, but
yeah, I don't know about that.
I don't think you want to start excluding people unless they're making repeated mistakes. I think a penalty would be good if they keep doing it. If they did it in all 3 races at Barber, for instance, in turn 1, then yeah, okay, they get a ban for the first race or the ban for the following week's meet. You might argue that, okay, you lose people from the league, but then is that a bad thing if somebody's destroying half the field in turn 1 every single race on the trot?
Yep, absolutely.
Not really, it's, you don't want to lose people, the more the merrier. But it's, I would say you give penalties. If somebody makes the same mistake over and over and over again, and they're being talked to about it as to why this is happening, why they're getting this thing, and
They
what
don't
they can
deserve
do
to
to
be
avoid it,
Mhm.
then it's a crime against everybody else to leave them there.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that we want and need the league to do better on all accounts and at all levels. So hopefully more than 15 people watch this, and we have a healthy discussion around it, and going on to the next race, things are a little bit better.
And also, hopefully, people know that not to take things personally, because in this day and age, everyone takes everything far too bloody personally. Right? It's not a personal attack. There's nothing. It's all to try and help people. If you're making the same mistakes, you're getting penalties. If you're not sure why, there's plenty of people around to help you understand why and try and change it. That's the whole point of racing in a league. You only get better when you're racing people better and faster than you. It's no fun being the quick guy.
No,
You
absolutely.
want people faster. Chris kicked my ass this week, and it was brilliant because it's reinvigorated me. You need it, and it's the only way you get better.
I think this goes back to a point that Tony made before, and that's practice. So, I mean, I do more practice than I probably let on, and practice, like I said before, just makes me less dangerous, which is a sliding scale, by the way. You don't see many people in practice. What we used to have was, for the really slow guys like me, we used to do educated laps from Tony, and they were really good for me. And we don't seem to do that so much anymore. Maybe we need to incorporate that for the slower guys, but that's not going to address the people with
Maybe get rid of the
diving down the
super
inside,
sprints.
right?
Yeah, maybe get rid of the super sprints, because if you're trying to encourage people to be more patient and take their time, the super sprints don't help because
No,
there's
because
not a
you've only
lot of
got
time.
limited time. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
So if everybody sort of went, okay, I'm going to take it easy the first couple of laps till the tyres come in, and then see where I'm at and see what my pace is. I think they'd be surprised. Like, accept where you are for the first couple of laps. You might learn something from that guy. You're going to learn more from following the guy that's a tenth faster than you or 2 tenths faster than you are following the guy that's a second faster than you.
It's a bit like communism, though, right? So everybody's got to think the same way in order for it to work.
Yeah.
Because one dude.
What you'll find is if most do start following it, most people will want to race like that. Most will see the benefits of it. And the ones that aren't following it will stand out like a sore thumb. They'll get some penalties. They'll soon be fed up with it, and they'll soon change their ways. Hopefully, that's what penalties are. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah. So lanes.
It's there to educate and let people know that what they're doing is wrong. That's not to say they can't change it. Let's help you change it. I don't see how it's a bad thing. It can only help that person and help the group in general.
Yeah, definitely. Lane's put a question on saying, why are we getting more problems this season? Is it just bigger grids? Is it?
I think the car has a lot to do with it.
I think the tyres, what we said, yeah.
Yeah, the tires, and the car's a little bit harder to set up this year, I think. I'm sure Foggy will disagree with me because he only runs the baseline anyways, but yeah.
It didn't work for us this round.
We are really finding it tough to set up the car, and things that worked with the old car don't seem to work so much with this car. And more and more, I find you need to understand what the tires are doing, and that takes 4 or 5 laps in a row on a track, and then set your car up for that point of the race. Setting it up for the first 2 laps of the race just isn't going to work, and I think it's similar to the TCR in that respect. If I heard Johnny correctly, you can set the car up to go very quickly right off the hop, or you can make it last. Our drop off at Barber was zero point 0.2 of a second from lap 5 to lap 16 or 17. So we didn't have hardly any
I
drop
think
off at
there
all.
was very minimal at that track for some reason, because we had a bad setup and we had the same pretty
Yeah.
much. So
Okay.
I think it's about 3/10.
Yeah. Slower
What I
track
would
too,
say
right?
is the baselines are good. The Racetech sets you put up are very good. People might need to play with ARBs or whatever to get it to what they like. But I personally, I think it's because there's so much grip available, and some people are using it just naturally in the tires, and some people choose to use it whilst other people are trying to be patient, and that's what's creating problems with the car. I don't think it's so much the setup, because I think most of the problems are lap 1, 2, 3. Especially in the super sprints. I think it's just people being a bit desperate on the tyres and getting caught out on the tyres, because the car feels great, but then as soon as you try and push it into that braking zone, you realise it's not actually that great, and it's not ready. And that's just the nature of the tyres. I think everyone needs to just be a bit calmer with them. I literally do as little as possible for the first 4 laps.
Mhm.
In the cars, regardless of the circuit, regardless of the track. I want to use them tyres as little as possible. End of. And that's not the case for most people. They think that's their opportunity to go for it and use up all that grip, and they're just killing themselves. Even if you get the position and it works, you're going to be mullered in the second half of the race. It's not worth doing.
It's a difficult equation to strike for a sprint race, though, right?
It is, but there's still a long way to go. You still kill yourself for the second half of a sprint race.
Mm-hmm.
It does that much damage. You try it in testing, okay? You go when you're testing at Barcelona, drive around, do 1 lap, then as you go into turn 1, deliberately lock the tyres up, and then do your same 10 laps or whatever. You have a look at your tyre percentage. You'll be, instead of being in the 90s, you'll be down in the 70s. 1
Mm-hmm.
lock up. It's huge, and I can't say it enough. It's massive, the effect you can have on your tyres, but just by overdriving in the early laps. 1 lockup will kill it. So it's not worth doing. But people will probably still do it. But that's why I think penalties are needed. I'm not into penalising everybody and doing this, because I don't think that'd be the case. I think it will be for the first couple of races,
Mm-hmm.
and then hardly anyone will get a penalty, because it will calm it down, because there's consequences. It's as simple. That's. I think it's simple in that respect. It's yeah.
Well, hopefully, through the discussion, people reflect on the racing that's been happening in the first few rounds now, and we all try and do better. And if we all try and do better, maybe collectively as a group we will do better.
Definitely.
Oh, I think we will. Like I said before, people need to remember that we're in season 8, already discussing season 9. We've been doing this for, is it 3 years or even more than 3 years? It's a good league. It's got good people in it. We just need to remember that, and like you're trying to get people to understand, it's understand your position in the equation, and when it's going to work out badly, not just for you but for everyone around you, and that's the respect bit that you were talking about.
Yeah, and everything. I might look like I'm moaning sometimes. I don't mean to come across like that. It's I love the car. I love this league. It's the best league I do. It's the best league I'm in, and it's the best league I've been in on iRacing. Full stop. The people are great, maybe except Tony. And that was a joke, Tony. Come on. And yeah,
Well, I'm laughing.
I just want it to be good, for everybody. And I know that I was going over the line a season or two ago quite a lot, because it does get competitive, and it's very easy to cross that line. And I'm trying to bring it back, and I think I'm doing all right at that.
Mhm.
But everybody needs to do it, otherwise it doesn't work.
Yeah,
And
that's absolutely right.
And if there's no discouragement, if there's no encouragement to respect each other, i.e., penalties, then people generally don't. So that but it's just any form of thing in life. If people can get away with something, they will. That's just the way it is, and they'll keep doing it until they're told not to, and that there's consequences. And this is no different, in my opinion. So it's not about punishing people; it's making people realise there's consequences for not staying within the rule. That's all, and that makes it better for everyone.
Do you think everybody fully understands the new car and the new tyres and the damage model and all the other changes that we're facing in this league at the moment because of this?
They're not that big problems, are they? The new
Maybe
tyres, the
not
new
for
cars. It's
you
people's
guys.
decisions, I think. It's
Yeah,
just
decisions is a big
it's just
thing. You're absolutely
attitudes. It always comes down to attitudes. So, like I
right.
said, if these same people were in a room with 4 of their teammates, this stuff wouldn't be happening.
All right, we're
They
in
would
the
be
ball.
having great side-by-side racing, unless they were doing it deliberately.
If it
That's a
was
whole different story.
if it was Vulcan, yeah, we would.
But generally speaking, if people are in there with their teammates having fun, let's practice side by side. Most people can do it.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
might be a little bit slower because you have to be a bit slower
Yeah, my
because
question
you're
was
being respectful. So it can work. So the cars, there's no excuses for it. It's mindset.
my question was more along the lines of, I'm probably worded better if I say it like this: are people still driving the other car as opposed to the new one?
I don't understand
I
that
don't
really.
know. No, I don't think the car drives that much different.
Agreed.
I think the tire's a little bit different, and certainly the behavior of the tire early is different. But after that, I don't believe that the car is that much different to drive.
Okay. So, Sam, have we missed any points? And Sam, you are? Say again?
Driving assist, whether driving assist should be
Right.
allowed. So the only driving assists that I guess we do have some driving assists, right?
There's a few on
So
there, yeah.
clutch, anti-stall, that sort of stuff. Um, the one thing that would happen if we didn't have it is the field would spread out a little bit on the start.
Yeah, I can't drive without auto blip. I just can't do it.
Yeah, it's not that hard.
What do they have in real life? They don't
They
have
have
one.
they have a line
These
locker.
cars?
Yeah, they
Yeah,
have a line locker on this
that was a
car.
question from before, actually. Do they use line lockers in real life?
Yeah, and I don't know if they have anti-stall or not, but there definitely is a line locker on it.
That, as far as I'm concerned, things should just be how they are in real life, whatever that may be. But most of the time, the fast guys, I think, especially in iRacing, if you turn these things off, you're quicker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
If
like
they make it
traction
easier
control
for a
and that
few
sort of
people,
stuff, but we
yeah.
don't even have that on this car.
No, but
The only
even
thing we
things
have
like
on
the
this car is, yeah,
clutch and the automatic clutch and things like that, if people are using that, fine. But you're not as quick. You'd be quicker
I
without
agree.
it.
Yeah,
So, is it really a benefit? If it helps people, good luck to them.
Yeah, it's not any faster. I know auto clutch, auto blip. I think there was a study done on it at some point in time, if I recall, and it's marginally slower than doing it yourself.
I've not actually tried it in this car, but in the MX-5, if you manually use the clutch and change gear yourself with the H shifter, for example, but manually clutch it, it's worth half a second a lap. It's
Right.
ridiculously faster.
That's a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And the MX-5 as well. Exactly.
Mm.
So I wouldn't want to know what it is in this if you were using it. But if it helps people, good luck to them. That's why they're there, I suppose. You know, certain people in the league I know need certain things on for various reasons. And it doesn't bother me if they use them. Good luck to them.
Well, especially if you're faster without them. It's always
Yeah,
going to be
you
a
are
benefit.
faster without them.
Yeah,
They're not
yeah.
going to make you quicker.
See, I knew there was a reason that I was slower. What was I going to say just then?
You were going to say we have lots to think about for next season.
We do have lots to think about for next season, even next race, Tony. Even next race, lots and lots to think about.
Someone's put in there, I wasn't even aware auto pit limiter was a thing. Is that a thing? Can you have
What?
it auto pit limiting
Auto?
when you
Really?
go in the pits?
I've got a button
I
for
I
it.
didn't know.
Yeah, you know what? I do think that is. I think that's there.
Well, so you can just fly into the pits and it automatically does it.
Never used it, so I wouldn't know.
No.
Yeah, that might be worth trying that one.
It'll slow you down about 500 feet before the actual
Yeah.
line, right?
Just after
Go
the
ahead.
start finish line. Yeah.
Yeah, next race you try it, Johnny.
I will try and practice first. Don't worry about that.
Any other comments from anyone else before I wrap this baby up?
I just wanted to say that you've now got the record for the longest podcast.
Well, that was always going to happen, wasn't it? You can't put a time limit on Genius, which is why Clyde's is so much shorter than mine. Sam, this is the most important question of the day. Am I or am I not a better commentator and MC than Clyde?
I
Cue the
did.
music.
I did not understand you all the night,
here
Pete.
we
So
go.
It's the whole language thing.
Language barrier is
the outro
suddenly an
music there.
issue.
That would have been hilarious.
In that case, it's going to be very shortly a goodbye from me, Johnny, Tony, and Sam. Do you want
Goodbye.
Take care, everyone.
yeah, goodbye, everybody. Thanks.
to roll the shaft music now, Sam? Excellent. How was that, guys?